So today is gonna be a bit different because this is gonna be a book talk of not one but two books, because I loved the second book but didn't like the first book so much. So I kind of wanted to wrap it all up into one thing. If you haven't guessed by what's behind me, we're talking about A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Court of Mist and Fury. And for the sake of my mouth not stumbling on those titles every time I say them, I'm gonna call it Acatar and Maas. So I read Acatar when it was a new release, and I wasn't crazy about it. I mean, everyone was so hyped about it, you know, so I sort of jumped on the hype train. People were starting to not be hype, and then I was like, wait, these people have some good points about why I should not be hype about this book. First off, it took like 2/3 to get anywhere. But the last chunk, I will say, was very exciting. There's some questionable things that I didn't like in the romantic interest. Then there was this guy at the end that was being painted in a romantic light, even though he was acting completely abusive and terrible, and I could see in the future that he would be a romantic interest, and I didn't like it. However, the second book really fixed a lot of things that didn't sit well with me, like especially the problems with the characters. Those were addressed, which is good. And this book was not slow to start. It was very quick to start, which I appreciate a lot. So for Acatar, I'm gonna give basically just a lay of the land. So in Acatar, we follow a girl named Feyre, and she's a human living in a world that is part human filled and part fae filled. She lives in a country, and the top part of it is all the fae courts. Below the wall is where the humans live. A long time ago, the fairies had humans as slaves, and the humans aren't too cool about that, so they're still afraid of them, and because the fairies are all powerful and all that stuff. Feyre's family was pretty well off, but then they lost a lot of their money, and now they're living in poverty, and she has to teach herself how to hunt in order to keep her family fed. And at the very beginning of the book, she accidentally kills a fae in its animal form, and you're not supposed to do that. And then another fairy from the Spring Court, which is the court that's right next to the wall, comes and basically wants a life for a life. But there is a loophole to where Feyre can live in the Spring Court instead of getting killed right there. And you might be thinking, that's a bit of a hokey beginning, like why wouldn't the dude just kill her? It makes sense later, I promise. And I'm gonna warn you that this isn't young adult, in my opinion. It's sort of like new adult, because there is sexual stuff in there. So if you're too young for that, or if that's not your thing, you might wanna not come to this. One last problem that I had with the first book was the fact that there was a turning point in the book, and that turning point was just an info dump. So not a fan of info dumps. I hate them. I hate them. They're lazy writing to me, and it's just, I lose my interest so quick. Luckily though, there was only one real info dump in the first book, and there was one info dump in the second book. That's my only real issue with the series as a whole. That's pretty much everything I can do without spoiling. If you haven't read this book, then I would recommend leaving now, because I'm about to spoil the heck out of this one. You need to leave now if you haven't read this. Go read it, you know? Like, I love Sarah J. Maas. She's a great, just go do it, you know? A Court of Mist and Fury, Maas. I've got a lot of notes. I don't know how I'm gonna go about talking about these notes. 20 pages in, and smut. I don't remember it being this, like, descriptive and this intense in the first book, but maybe it was and I just wasn't paying attention. Something that was really well written and something that really, like, hit me was Feyre's PTSD and depression. I thought it was really sad, because she would say these things to herself. Tamlin would do pretty, like, abusive things, like, you know, not let her go to the village or whatever. She'd say to herself, oh, well, next time I'll make him take me. And, like, in my head I was wondering, like, how many times has she thought that to herself? I'm just gonna kind of talk about Tamlin for a second, because oh my god, a lot. I didn't like him all that much in the first book, so it wasn't hard for me to drop him, like, as a love interest real quick. I mean, in the first book I did obviously prefer him over Rhysand, because Rhysand was terrible in the first book, and anyone who shipped Feyre and Rhysand in the first book without knowing what was gonna happen in the second book. In the first book, I didn't catch what he was doing as, like, an abusive thing, but at the very beginning of the second book, I, like, immediately saw it, and I was like, this is incredibly abusive. When Tamlin, like, exploded and destroyed the art set that he had bought for her, my heart was beating. I was nervous, like, for Feyre, because, like, she was probably just like, what's happening? Like, this is the person that I love, you know, and they're, like, freaking out. And, like, she protected herself with that little air bubble or whatever. But if she hadn't had that ability, like, all those shards of, you know, furniture and stuff would have hit her. Like, she would have been hit by all that debris and explosion from Tamlin, and that's just, like, so messed up, in my opinion. Like, There's a huge parallel for me in this between Rhysand and Tamlin and Feyre to Warner and Adam and Juliet from the Shatter Me series. Let me tell you why. Because at the beginning of the Shatter Me series, Juliet was, like, really depressed and, like, really down on herself. In Acatar at the beginning, Feyre is like, I'm thinking that I was a lonely, helpless person and I might have fallen in love with the first thing that showed me a hint of kindness and safety. And I'm thinking that maybe he knew that. Maybe not actively. Maybe he wanted to be that person for me. And maybe that worked for who I was before. Maybe it doesn't work for what I am now. There. That is the whole thing. That right there was literally, like, the relationship between the three of them in the Shatter Me series. You know, and it just, I don't know, it was cool to make that connection. If you haven't read the Shatter Me series, sorry that you don't understand what I just said. Anyway, jumping back to, Tamlin's abusive behaviors, the fact that he didn't see that Feyre had learned to read was really weird to me. Like, she was, like, spending all her time, like, reading when she was away from the Night Court. Like, reading, like, took her mind away from, you know, all the things that she thought about from under the mountain. Tamlin knew that she couldn't read, and now all of a sudden she's reading, and he didn't even notice, and I don't know, that was just really weird. Like, you would notice that in someone that you love, you know? The invisible wall was the last straw, and apparently it was the last straw for Feyre and Rhysand, too. I could not believe what I was reading when Tamlin put up that force field around the house so Feyre couldn't leave. I was literally in tears because of how frustrated I was with Tamlin's behavior. Oh my god, the anger inside of me was ridiculous. You could tell Lucien didn't like that, but he didn't do anything, and I'll get into that later. I'll talk about Lucien later. I have stuff to say about Lucien. And then another big thing, very big thing, that Tamlin did was ignore Feyre's letter. She wrote Tamlin a letter when she was at the Night Court, when Mor had, like, rescued her, and then Rhysand rescued her. When she was rescued from Tamlin, she wrote him a letter about, like, how she's fine, she's not kidnapped, she just wants to be away. Completely ignored it. He went to the King of Hybern and helped him out. He helped him out. I couldn't help but compare Rhys and Tamlin and how they interacted with Feyre, even though Rhys was saying, don't compare me to him, and I was like, I'm still gonna compare you to him. I'm sorry, you guys are the two male love interests, I'm gonna compare you. Feyre was saying that she wanted to go with Rhys to, like, do stuff. She didn't want to sit around the house and do nothing, because that's what she had been doing for so long. And Rhys immediately let her go with him. Obviously worried for her safety, just as Tamlin was, but that didn't make him prevent her from doing things, you know what I mean? And then throughout the book, the pieces of Rhysand start to fall together, and we know why he was such a terrible character in the first book. It was because if anyone had seen a crack in that cold, evil persona that he had, people would find out about the city that he was giving his soul to protect. You can see how much he hated doing those things to Feyre. Because from the very beginning, there was a connection between them because he had been feeling it since before they'd even met at Calanmai. Obviously, doing those things to her hurt him. He didn't want to, but he couldn't show that bit of humanity, or else people would be like, what's going on? So the part at the Weaver made me really happy. Not as it was happening, but afterwards, you know, like in the aftermath of it all. It was really funny. Like, he was chilling and he was like, what did you just do? And she was like, I got the ring, can we leave now? And then later on you realize that he didn't really need the ring, because his mother had given the Weaver the ring in order to, like, hide it or whatever, and Rhys was supposed to give that ring to the person he was gonna marry, and his mom said that if she can't survive the Weaver, then she wouldn't be able to survive a marriage with Rhysand, and that was just really funny. So then you find out that they're mates! And my friend Emma had been asking me over and over, because I was reading it before her. She was like, have you gotten to the part where it explains the look at the end of A Court of Thorns and Roses? And like at the beginning I was like, I don't remember what you're talking about. What are you talking about? Because at the end of Acatar, Rhysand like staggers when Feyre becomes alive again, and then he flies away before she's able to like ask him, yo, what's up? And that was because the mating bond was clicking into place, and like, what? I loved hearing Rhys's perspective on all of that in that one chapter where he was like the chapter of the soup, you know, when the soup happened. Something that made me really kind of upset was, why did Feyre get mad? Yeah, I'd be like kind of put off for a bit, but I wouldn't go hide out in his mountain cabin, you know? Like what did you expect him to do, you know? He wanted her to fall in love with him, not because she had to, but because she wanted to, you know? Like, he couldn't tell her in the prison cell under the mountain being, hey, I know that I'm being like such a huge ass, but I'm actually your mate. What's up? Couldn't tell her before she realized like what a D-bag Tamlin was. He couldn't be like, oh, I'm stealing you away from your fiance because you are my mate. Like, no, there was no possible way that he could have told her and been like a good guy about it, you know what I mean? But then there's the soup scene, and I thought that was so funny. And then soon after that, the city is under attack, which is great. I knew the queens were fishy. I'm pretty sure everyone knew the queens were fishy. I called it that they were working for the King of Hybern. The battle happens in the city, and the water wolves and like the freezing of the, oh gosh, Feyre was so cool in it. She fought like, Feyre is literally the Avatar, defender of the rainbow. Like, I love it. So after that battle, there wasn't much of a book left. And they were talking about how they needed to go to the King of Hybern and like the stuff with the Book of Breathings and the Cauldron and all that complicated stuff. And then they were going, like, right then. And I was like, there is not enough pages in the book to deal with all this. We need to push this to the next book. They cannot win in this amount of pages. Tamlin, you idiot. Literally the chapter before this, I wrote on the top, where is Tamlin? What is he doing? We haven't heard from him. If he's with the King of Hybern, ... he was with the King of Hybern. When your girlfriend breaks up with you, you don't partner with a massive psychopath that wants to destroy everything. Like, that's not what you do. And then he finally starts to realize like how much he screwed up when Feyre's sisters come in. They were gonna like get baptized in the cauldron, and I was like, no, this is gonna kill Elaine. Luckily, they both survived, but like, they're both Fae, and they both hate Fae, and now they are what they hate, and it's just so sad, and Elaine is mates with Lucian. Oh my god! Tamlin launched himself at the throne as if he'd rip him to shreds. That white-hot magic slammed into him, shoving him to the ground, leashing him. And I wrote next to it, how does it feel? Even though, like, terrible things are happening, I was still like, I hate you. How does it feel to be leashed yourself? Like a possession. Like a possession, Tamlin. Feyre does the thing where she pretended that she had broken free of whatever trance Rhysand had put her under. Even though there was no trance. There was no trance, but she faked it to where Tamlin believed her. I don't know how Feyre did it, because I was gagging as she was like, Tamlin, take me away. I'm so scared. And I was like, this is it. This is it. This is terrible. This is it. At least the bros in the Court of Dreams, like, see what she's doing. They're not like, oh my god, she's betraying us. Like, at least they could see what was happening. And then she goes, break the bond. I was freaking out because it said the bond snapped, and I was just, nope. Nope, 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 1,000 times no. But everything turns out to be dandy, apparently, which is great. I love how it switched to Rhysand's perspective. The bond that he broke was the bargain bond, which, like, I was fine with breaking. I hated that bond. It stood for all the things I hate, you know, belonging to I hated it. I hated it. The mating bond was fine. And not only that, but they had gotten married the night before. She's High Lady. And at the very beginning, Feyre was saying Feyre brought up, like, why aren't there any High Ladies? And Tamlin was like, there's just no such thing as a High Lady. As soon as Tamlin said that, I was like, just you wait. Just you wait. Tamlin literally led the High Lady of the Night Court into his base. So she's gonna be a spy. And like, I don't think Tamlin knows that she can read. She can be such a good spy. And like, you know how she has that shape-shifting abilities, sort of? Could she shape-shift into Tamlin or shape-shift into someone important to get information? The dad being gone for the whole book was convenient, but a bit fishy, and I feel like something is going on with that, but I don't know what. Amryn, alright? I don't know what she is. I don't know how she got there. I mean, I guess we sort of know how she got there. We got like an idea, you know? But what is she? I want to know. I want her to go home if she wants that, you know? She's stuck in a mortal body. She probably hates it. They've been looking for a way home for a long time, and I'm like, is that foreshadowing? I totally didn't talk about Moore and the part in To the Court of Nightmares. The whole exchange between Rhysand and Feyre was so scandalous. Like, I was scandalized while reading it. But anyway, that's not what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about Moore. She seriously reminds me of Aelin a lot from Throne of Glass. There's a quote that Moore was a queen who bows to no one. And like, that is Aelin as hell, you know? I love it. I loved it. Now I kind of want to talk about Lucien, alright? Lucien was like my favorite character in the first book. He was really funny. He seemed like he would be a really good friend. And even at the beginning, I was like, oh, maybe he'll like help her out. It seemed like he really didn't like the way that Tamlin was treating Feyre. And I was like, oh, you're gonna come in and be a bro, aren't you? Aren't you? But then he didn't. Especially the part where, you know, he was trying to kidnap her back. You could tell that Lucien did care about Feyre's well-being. He just didn't have all the information. And he's so blindly loyal to Tamlin. His eye. In an interview, Sarah said that in the next book we'll get to know a lot about like how Lucien's eye works, you know, his like metal or glass or his fake eye. I feel like it's sort of like he's sort of like Cinder, to where he can like detect when someone's lying, like, you know how in Cinder, when someone's lying, then like her vision goes orange. I think that Lucien's eye can like see through that, because Feyre was being like, oh, I don't remember how I broke free of Rhysand's trance. I just sort of did. And Lucien was like, There was one part, Cass couldn't go somewhere, and he was like, are you kidding? That was just one building. And also Azriel was really cool and like spooky, because I couldn't get a real grasp on like him. Are we going with primary colors? Is the next one gonna be yellow? Let me know what you thought of these books, because I completely shifted. Like, I really didn't like this book, but I read this one because it's Sarah J. Maas, and now I love it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Sat back with the window down, 80 an hour and the radio loud. The same songs with the same old rhymes.
I'm keeping this here because I did not realize there was a jar of Nutella behind this book, and it's better to just hide that part of my life. Feyre needs to get out of there. I'm sorry I talk so much with my hands. They talk for me, you know?